All right, the first round is officially in the books. It took a long time to finish that draft, and the Blackhawks ended up making 3 picks in the first round. I did mention in the last couple of videos I posted that I did expect the Blackhawks to make another move in the first round, as they usually do. They're one of the only teams, pretty much the only team you can consistently count on here, it seems like, to make a move, make a trade on draft day. They ended up picking at 3 and 25, and then they also acquired 29 from Carolina, and they traded picks 34 and 62 for tomorrow's day 2 of the draft, and they also traded a future 5th-round pick. So definitely a decent amount to move up only 5 spots, but I do think it's worth it. At some point, it's just not really a point to make a ton of picks and get a ton of prospects. I'd rather make sure you get your guy that you're targeting than make a couple extra picks of guys that really realistically probably won't end up making a long-term impact on the Blackhawks team. So obviously at 3, we saw Anton Frondell go off the board to the Blackhawks. I made a reaction video right after that pick happened. If you want to check that out, those are a little more of my thoughts. Obviously, we already know a lot about Frondell. We know about the potential for a really good high-end two-way center. We know about his elite shot and how he projects to be on the first unit power play. A couple new notes we got after the draft and after he was selected, and then he talked to some reporters. We do now know, because I said in my reaction video that he was going to be playing in Sweden next year, but that's not actually a guarantee. He says he's going to try to make the Blackhawks this upcoming season. He's going to try to make the NHL roster, and then if he doesn't, then he will go play back in Sweden. So that's an interesting note. That would be really cool if we see him make the NHL team in year 1. So we'll see what happens, but that's kind of fun to know that he's not a lock to go back to Sweden. So that's something to keep an eye on as we get to training camp. He was also asked by one of the reporters after the draft if the Blackhawks are getting their own version of Alexander Barkov by drafting you, and he said yes, that's who they're getting. So that's a super fun comparison. Obviously, that's the one that's kind of been mentioned and thrown around, and scouts have said he does have shades of Alexander Barkov, and he himself has just said after the draft he does model his game after Barkov, and he does think he can be a Barkov version, or at least a version of Barkov, long-term for the Blackhawks. That's super exciting news. That's exactly what you want to hear out of your number 3 pick, someone that can potentially be a superstar in the league. And yeah, obviously a lot of fans are disappointed to miss out on Michael Misa. I am on record for saying that Misa was my number 1 guy I wanted in this draft, but I'm super excited about Anton Frondell. I think he's going to be an amazing piece for us long term. Now we'll fast forward here to the number 25 pick, where the Blackhawks sticked and picked, and they ended up going with Vaclav Nestrasil out of the USHL. He's a 6'6" winger. He had 42 points in 62 games last year in the USHL, and then 13 points in 14 games in the postseason. From what I've seen, he seems like a skilled and obviously a big winger that could potentially play in the middle 6. And obviously, everyone's aware of our current prospect pool. It's really nice to add some guys with size, and adding Nestrasil a 6'6" frame definitely still has to fill out a little bit. He'll be going to the NCAA next year. Definitely still needs to fill out a little bit, but he can project to be a really good frame, a really big frame, and that's something big that we needed to add to our prospect pool. He'll be playing in college at UMass next year. Projects really well for his development. I think this was a really good pick. I know a lot of Blackhawks fans, a lot of people who looked in here to the back half of the first round are very excited to pick Nestrasil. He was on one of the guys that a lot of Blackhawks fans that I've seen targeted at number 25. So Blackhawks end up picking him. I think that's going to make a lot of fans happy. He seems like he's a really good pick and exactly what the Blackhawks prospect pool needs. And when we thought we were done, Blackhawks make a trade back into the first round. Kyle Davidson loves trading back into the first round for those late first round picks, and they end up selecting Mason West out of Minnesota, out of high school. Another Minnesota high school player. If you remember, if that sounds familiar, it's because Sam Renzel was taken in the back half of the first round just a couple years ago out of a Minnesota high school, and obviously that was a slam dunk pick. So I think that is kind of exciting to get another one of these kind of raw players, super high potential players, but will definitely have some development to do. Mason West is a 6'6" forward, another 6'6" forward, but he's a lot bigger than Nestrasil. He's already started to fill out his frame. He's around 220 pounds compared to Nestrasil, who's just a little bit over 180. What's really cool about West, and I'm sure you'll hear this storyline every single time you hear his name, but he is a football player too. He'll be playing quarterback for his high school team this upcoming fall, and then he will be going to the USHL about halfway through the season, and then in the following year he'll be going to college with Michigan State. We'll see how that ends up developing, how his development goes. Definitely a very unique situation. Blackhawks don't seem too concerned with that, considering they drafted AJ Spellacy last year, who was also a multi-sport athlete, also played football. And again, we've seen him look like a really good potential bottom six piece long term for the Blackhawks. So I don't think they were too concerned with that. They traded up to get him. They obviously really wanted this player, and I think for good reason. I'm really happy that they had someone they targeted, another guy that fits that big frame, who's different from what they have already in their prospect pool. And really, I don't think you need to make all these second round picks that you have in the upcoming drafts. You have plenty of picks that you don't really need to use all of them. You should be trading them and getting more quality instead of quantity. So I really like both the selections here in the back half of the first round, adding two big forwards that have a lot of potential, and both will get time in college here in the next couple years to really develop their games. So to add two guys that can play in that middle six or top nine, potentially bottom six, whatever it may be, adding these two guys as bigger guys to complement a smaller forward group, and then obviously adding the big fish, Anton Frondell, at the top of the draft. I think this was a great round one for the Blackhawks. Now looking ahead to tomorrow, they'll pick at the top of the third round since they traded both their second round picks to move up and get Mason West. They also have two fourth round picks, a sixth round pick, and two seventh round picks. So plenty of picks. Probably not going to be using all of those. I'd expect them to trade them in some capacity for who knows what they'll end up trading them for, but I don't think they'll make all those picks. We'll see what happens tomorrow, but I think today was a super successful day, adding three players that project to be NHL players for you. I'm super excited to see all the storylines surrounding these guys, how they may end up, especially like Anton Frondell. I can't wait to see if he's going to make the team out of training camp. It's going to be really, really interesting to watch. Unfortunately, since the Blackhawks don't do on-ice development camp, there's no way for us to watch these players for a couple more months, which just kind of stinks for the fans. I remember going to 2022 development camp. I saw Sam Renzel for the first time. I absolutely loved his skating, so I'm going to take a little bit of credit here and say that I was on the Sam Renzel train before a lot of people. So to not have development camp anymore, we can't really do that and really pick any of these players because we're not going to see them play for a little bit. But potentially in training camp, we see these guys get some action, maybe in the preseason. And all in all, let me know what you think about these players. But I think it was a really successful day for the Blackhawks. I really liked the first round of this draft.